26th at 3 p.m. I call the roll.
Director Daddy?
Here.
Director Weaver?
Here.
Chair Hages?
Here. And stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and
To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Mike, you have anything to report on mutuals?
No report.
And nothing from the water district.
From Casitas, I can say the lake is spilling. It's about, as of yesterday, 3 inches over the spillway, about 20 CFS. And there's still quite a bit of water coming in from the creeks. So. General Manager comments. Julia?
Hi there. Sorry, I couldn't be there in person. I don't have that much to report on. We're still working on the audit. It was quite an extensive list of data that the auditors were looking for, so we're getting through that as much as possible with the time constraints. And then DWR is having some programming in early March for Groundwater Awareness Week, so I've signed up for a couple of those programs, and that's about it.
Okay, thank you. Jordan, basin status?
All right, pardon me as we get sharing the screen here. And starting from the beginning. With our slideshow, today's topic, almost supercharged again. As you know, it's abnormally wet around these parts these days, and as Chair Hay just mentioned, the lake is spilling and the basin is flowing artesian in many places. Is there room in the basin still? Perhaps. We may be on the verge of being supercharged, and I'll explain a bit more about that momentarily. How much rain have we gotten so far? As of today, we're at 27.12 inches on the valley floor. That's about 6 inches over our long-term average for a water year. 51.10 inches, nearly double on top of the ridge where much of our recharge is collected. And interestingly, this water year, as I was reading the snippets of the California Water Plan 2028. Anybody else see that come through today? At least on the Maven's notebook. It was interesting that the recognition that we're, even in our wettest years, we have very dry months. It's just the nature of how the precipitation falls and when and where throughout the state. What that does to us locally in the basin, at least looking at the key well metrics, this is the Elrod well. And what you're looking at is a graph from 2023 October to today. And you see the peaks of each of the 3 past water years. 23-24, relatively wet. 24-25, relatively dry. And 25-26, pretty wet again. The x-axis scale here is from 32, or atmospheric pressure, at the bottom to 220 feet at the top, and that's basically how deeply submerged the logger is in this well. In 2022 to 3, we had some pretty wet times, but then 23-24, 28.86 inches on the valley floor. The next year, 24-25, 23-24, 24-25, 9.21 inches, and this year, 25-26, we have 27.12 inches, almost identical, really, to what we had in 2023 to 2024. Now, that year, we had a nadir that rose up to a peak of 48.6 feet above its driest point. The following year, 24-25, it was 7.5 feet. And then this year, thus far, we're 91.5 inches of rise in the groundwater basin levels. to date. It's still going up. And the question is, how much further can it go up? That previous year, 22-23, is not pictured here. But the reason it can't go too much farther up is that we're about 50 feet below ground surface at the Key Well, and our historic highs in the 30s, 30-something feet below ground surface at the Key Well. It just can't get much more full or supercharged, and that's when there's rejected recharge because the basin cannot take any more. And there's a time right about now when we can still get a little bit more water in there because not every basin well is artesian, at least the ones that typically will flow artesian and have in the past really wet years, 2023 to 2024, most notably. And some of the wells up closer to the foothills still have yet to flow artesian, but may be getting very close. When that happens, then we're certainly supercharged. Longer term hydrograph, you can count on two hands now the number of years where we've had about 50 feet or shallower in that central portion of the basin as a depth to water. As of yesterday, 225-26, the 50.38 foot depth to water puts us at about 95% of basin capacity, or 76,000 acre feet. And we continue to put that 37.78 from April 2023 as a near historic high, if not historic high, and calling that somewhere around the 99%. When we are that full, we are losing water at a pretty good clip. Surface water budget as of yesterday, counting some of the flows that we measured: Gridley 9.14 CFS, Thatcher 3.61 CFS, Reeves 3.36 CFS, the surface flow out at Montgomery 3.57 CFS, surface flow out at San Antonio Creek proper 3.79 CFS. That's quite a bit of water. Ladera Bridge at Senior Canyon 8.57 CFS. Stewart Canyon flowing in at 0.32 CFS. The surface water inflow in total of greater than 25 CFS. And we say greater because each of these measurement points is over some component of alluvium, which has some subsurface flow in that alluvium that's recharging the main portions of the basin, or if it's on the west side of the basin, the perch system. The total outflow, a bit more accurate, 37.36 CFS, because there's relatively little alluvium at the point of measurement in San Antonio Creek and Montgomery. Further downstream, something that we've noticed over the years is that there's some pretty good data out there, there's some pretty good observations, and there's some pretty poor observations. This one is Camp Comfort at San Antonio Creek. The observation is, as of today, this morning at least, 258 CFS, and that's obviously not true if we're getting in the 30s of outflow from the Ojai Basin, and this is all of a mile downstream with no real other tributaries coming into it. It's not flowing 258 CFS as shown in the blue line there, but the predicted line of about 25 CFS is much more accurate. That's the orange line that is based on the modeling, actually, based on inflow parameters at other measured gauges and precipitation. 10 times what is actually happening. Now, further downstream, near the confluence, San Antonio Creek at Old Creek Road, we noticed that the county moved their radar gauge further to where water is actually flowing under the bridge. And that was a 59 CFS measurement this morning, at least the observation. And the forecast was pretty similar. The orange line and the blue line seem to track pretty well. I would argue that the orange line is still more accurate than the observation because the elevation does change with respect to alluvium at that point. It's still relatively thin, but because of that stage change and a yet to be made rating shift by the county, we're seeing an observation that, while inaccurate, is still closer than the 10 times errant we see upstream. Maybe they'll change that in the near future too. So what does it look like with all this inflow coming into the basin? As it takes time to load on the screen. There we go. 3.36 CFS inflowing at Reeves Creek. 0.32 CFS at Stewart Canyon. The photos are taking a while to load, so apologies for that. Stewart Canyon's normally dry, but it's one of those tributaries that's relatively small and is just upstream from the debris basin that protects the city from some of the debris flow issues, and would recharge primarily the perch system to the west side of the basin. McNell being dry. Thatcher Creek flowing at 3.61 CFS. This does, in fact, as does Reeves, fully infiltrate to the basin at that rate. It's the higher rates further to the central portion of the basin where San Antonio Creek's headwaters are. 8.57 CFS inflowing under Ladera Road Bridge. That's still quite a bit of water. Where that intersects with Gridley and becomes San Antonio Creek, the cascade over the dry crossing is evident. And that begins to infiltrate into the basin as long as there's room for it to infiltrate and available storage capacity. As we go further to the center of the basin, some of the visuals flow all the way across, as shown in this image taken from the Grand Avenue Bridge looking north. Seems like things are a little slow today on the upload side. And of course, several artesian wells. A couple of days ago, we made the trek to just observe several of those that may be flowing artesian or not. And the Hartman Tree Farm well is famously flowing artesian. It's usually one of the first to flow under artesian pressure. At the South Fulton Street depth discrete monitoring well, the aquifer that is correlative to this is also flowing artesian, but the others are not. They're not yet reached that point of amount of storage or excess storage to where it's flowing artesian. The wells that are further north that do flow artesian from time to time were not yet flowing artesian, and more specifically that at the what we call the Hansen well at Park and Grand, and the Lago Marcino well further up Gridley Road. Both of those had flowed artesian in recent years, but were still not flowing yet as of our reconnaissance the last week. The 3.57 CFS outflow at Montgomery is evident here. A lot of the storm that came through most recently culled out so much debris and sand and sediment that the creeks are really flowing on a very coarse gravel substrate. So they tend to be much clearer than earlier in the season, which is always interesting to see. The main outflow point at San Antonio Creek, where we had 33 CFS, that's what that looked like as of yesterday. And again, you can see the clarity of the water, the broad and deep channel that's there, and a good amount of clarity and really excellent habitat if you need it. Over on the Old Creek Road Bridge, you can see the county gauge right over the flowing channel, the main flowing channel, and it looks to be a bit more flow than at the basin outflow point, largely due to the Upper Ojai Lion Creek coming into play. A little further downstream, we also took a look at San Antonio Creek just above the confluence with Ventura River, so just downstream of the image that you're seeing now. Looking upstream from the bicycle path bridge, it's always a good image to get, but again, very well culled out and a good amount of flow. Looking the other direction at the levee pool area on the Ventura River, significantly more flow with the entirety of the Ventura River watershed in play, upstream at least of the levee pool. just downstream of the confluence with San Antonio Creek. All right, so what do we got going forward? It's always interesting to see what NOAA says about this. The below average to equal chances is what we've had for quite some time throughout this water year, and yet it's been as wet as years where they were predicting quite a bit of precipitation. Ultimately, climate's what you expect and weather's what you get, and fortunately, the groundwater basins can accept so much of that precipitation recharge when we get it, and then be there for us to manage appropriately as we see fit and can agree to. Drought-wise, it's always interesting to see. Last month, we had the no parts of California in drought, but I found this graphic to share. Northern California starting to go toward abnormally dry to moderate drought conditions and near the border with Oregon. And where we are on the south central coast and much of even into the Central Valley, the abnormally wet to moderately wet conditions are present. I find it interesting that the term abnormally wet is in play. And the pictures look great, and there's still not as much water as some folks might think is necessary to be normal. But this is abnormal. We've got less than 10 or so years where we've had this shallow of water levels in the basin, and it's nice to see an abnormally wet graphic that is on a drought indicator. It's a drought indicator. That's more normal, to be drier in these parts. Any questions?
Yep, I have one. As I've looked at a number of sections along the rivers, we've had massive amounts of soil and debris taken out. I mean, just huge amounts. Is that helping us perk more water into the aquifer? Or is it just allowing everything to go out express much faster?
I would argue that the culling of fine-grained sediments, which have a lower infiltration capacity, allows more recharge to occur into the creeks and into the groundwater basin. But it happens so much all at once that we're fighting the amount of water that's in the basin, and it's becoming rejected. So post-Thomas fire, for example, we had some very fine-grained sediments and even clays and ash on the surfaces of all the creek beds. That allowed, let's say, 5 CFS to come in to the headwaters over the groundwater basins and 5 CFS to go out with very little infiltration. That fine-grained material had a low infiltration capacity that did not allow that water to infiltrate. The water levels remained subdued underground, but there was creek flow all the way across. Not a lot of infiltration. Once that gets culled out, a lot of the fine material, but also debris, the wooded debris and leaves and algae even, when that goes away because of the high force of the storms, it takes a lot of that fine-grained sediments out and allows that high infiltration capacity gravel to be exposed. So we get faster recharge in those time frames until it's too full to accept any.
And as far as these meters, do we get to pick which meter we want when it comes to the adjudication and the water flow? I'd much rather use the one at 220 than 30, and then we can call this thing a draw.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I would hang my hat on actual measured data.
Do we,
as opposed to radar observations that are not yet shifted to the accurate rating.
Are the courts aware of they're going to come up with a number, and I'm just wondering what they think they're going to use to monitor them?
Anybody's guess.
They haven't brought that part up yet, right?
No.
Okay.
Court's the least informed person in the process right now, so it's just the way it works. For the record, Director Whitman is present. Any other questions?
Jordan, I just wanted to mention that the Casitas wells on the Ojai system are artesian. I found that out this morning.
That's relatively recent. Do we have a time when that started to flow?
Mike Flood is on. I don't know if he knows more details or not, but I can find out.
All right, let's have a note of that just so that we know that timestamp. Thank you.
Okay.
Anything else? Any public comments? Yes.
Understand if I could, probably a topic that's already well known amongst all of you, but I'm curious as to efforts going forward to, if we have these types of rain events, to retain more of that once the ground basin is supercharged and perhaps all the artesian are flowing. How do we go about retaining more water for future either fire prevention efforts or other events that may occur? Just general public curiosity. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, next item is public comments on items not appearing on tonight's agenda. Are there any questions? Any comments? Okay, it's consent agenda. We have the financial report for January and the minutes of the January 29th meeting.
I make a motion, we accept.
Second.
Call the roll.
Director Danny?
Yes.
Director Whitman?
Yes.
Director Weaver?
Yes.
Chair Hages?
Yes. Okay, item 8, or action items. This is a well verification procedure for 1126 Mercer Avenue. Julia?
Yes, so the applicant is looking to drill a replacement well for their property on Mercer Avenue with an expected extraction of 10 acre-feet per year. They did pay the deposit to have DUDEC evaluate that, and DUDEC's report is attached. Jordan knows a little bit more about what's going on at that property. They have been reporting on their existing well, but their plan is to abandon or destroy that existing well after this new one is up and running.
You have any comments, Jordan?
I'm happy to make some comments. I'll take off my OBGMA hat and put on my Cure Groundwater hat for a moment and speak on behalf of our client, the Norrises and Mercer Trust folks. The well that is in question is 4 North 22 West 6D1. It was drilled in 1912 and made a decent amount of water for a number of years, had issues with clogging and sanding, and then they put a liner in. So the well efficiency declined significantly. So the problem with this well is that they'll pump it, it draws down, the pump cavitates, and they have to turn it off for a while. So they have to cycle it off and on, which doesn't help the well environment. So the plan is now to replace that well and destroy it, and then use that land space for something else with the new well that's before you for verification to replace their extraction from the basin.
And the new well is going to basically pump the same amount of water that historically the old well had been pumping.
Likely historically, yeah. Recent years maybe not so much, but once upon a time when it was most efficient, it would like to equal those amounts.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, and another thing. Any questions?
The only thing I wanted to share, if you guys were curious, is the number of wells that have been approved in the last few years. There's been like a dozen applications since I came on board in April of 2023. Some are replacement, some are new. This was the total demand that was projected or estimated in all of those applications. Some of them haven't been drilled. Some of them have been drilled, but they don't have power yet. So they're in various stages. But I just wanted to give you a snapshot of the last few years of well activity.
Do you have any idea how much of that total is from replacement?
I mean, these are replacement wells here. These,
okay.
It's like 4 out of the 12. What I need to do is look and see how much they're actually reporting Like I said, some are in various stages of construction and, implementation, startup, and all of that. So,
So the net increase is pretty minor.
yes.
Okay, I assume this resolution includes these findings of no impact to sustainability? Is that what we're doing?
Correct. Yes, it shows that there's, what is the right word? It does not conflict with the groundwater sustainability plan and the goals and objectives of it.
Okay, so is it the resolution's a single action?
Yes.
Any comments from the public?
Recommend we adopt.
I'll second.
Call the roll?
Director Daddy,
Yes.
Director Whitman,
Yes.
Director Weaver,
Yes.
Chair Hages.
Yes. Okay, item 9, discussion items. Legislative ad hoc committee, do we have any news on that?
No, the committee didn't meet. The small GSA coalition met, and it does look like the funding from POP 4 is going to be allocated to small GSAs. And there is a letter that the small GSA coalition is putting together to DWR to ask them to streamline that process and to reduce the administrative overhead in getting grant money and reporting. So we should hopefully be able to get $100,000 or so back through that program to help pay for that 5-year update.
Oh, good, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the meter compliance committee. I don't think we have anything, do we?
We do not have anything on that.
All right. There's no other business. We're adjourned at 3:29.
Thank you. I think that's a record.